Over the past week or two, race hysteria in the WNBA has somehow reached yet another inflection point. The league is currently in the midst of what really might be the single most contrived racism scandal, certainly in any professional sport, at least since the fake noose in Bubba Wallace's garage. Specifically, a bunch of WNBA players have come out claiming that they've been victimized by racial slurs and other forms of racist attacks. Like, a lot of players are claiming this. In other words, they're now accusing the people who have started showing up to WNBA games for the first time in more than 2 decades of being horrible racists.
Caitlin Clark just heard another absurd statement from Alyssa Thomas. It's embarrassing, I assure you, to discuss racism. Fans won't forgive this woman since she simply went too far this time. Speaking of relationships, Alyssa Thomas voiced her opposition to racism throughout the playoffs. Could anyone forget her amazing performance? It's been a lot of bullshit, to be honest. I don't believe I've ever encountered racist remarks from the Indiana Fever fan base in my 11-year tenure. We had her face on a severe issue that occurred in this world, and to be honest, it's unacceptable. Now that it's old news, let's be amazed that she didn't even try to apologize. This time, not at all. Like a real queen of chutzpah, she simply owned every ounce of the garbage she spit out. However, this time, the media experts truly made the decision to stand up and act seriously. Since racism is obviously ingrained in the thoughts of these so-called players, it is neither Caitlin Clark's nor her fans' property. And believe me, I'm prepared to use every last bit of my energy to expose her. I don't believe it's the Fever fans, so you have to be careful when you say things like that. The reason for this, in my opinion, is that some individuals wanted Caitlin Clark to be a certain way and believed she was. As a result, they became fans of Caitlin Clark and later found that she isn't racist. It all began when Thomas didn't mince words and called out Caitlin Clark's fan base for racial hatred, as she put it. This wasn't just a casual remark. It was an open and honest criticism of the prejudices and unfair practices that lie beneath the league's glitzy exterior. It had to be spoken, to be honest. What are we doing? After all, if we're all cheering for equality while ignoring the obvious racial dynamics at work, Alyssa Thomas's annoyance with how she and her teammates were treated went beyond a simple personal gripe. It served as a call to action. We saw her face on a major issue that occurred in this world, and to be honest, it is unacceptable. It's time for a reality check if you feel like this just happened. Every dispute has its origins, and this one dates back to when Carrington's eye poke on Clark sparked fans to accuse him of being unsportsmanlike. Before a sudden turn with some overtly racist overtones, it was the typical internet craze that we've seen a million times. Alyssa Thomas thought she had had enough at that point. She did more than just stand up for her teammate. She tore off the cover and revealed the ugliness of these criticisms. They're a little of a shoulder. There was a lot of support for Alyssa Thomas, not just a little amount. Indeed, they will not examine this. I hope they would. This inquiry should make you uncomfortable. Why is it that a black player is labeled aggressive when they display fire, yet passion is the term used when someone else does the same? Alyssa Thomas wasn't afraid to call attention to this unfair treatment. Carrington was called unsportsmanlike by Clark's supporters, but would they have done the same if the positions had been reversed? It's been a lot of bullshit, to be honest. I don't believe I've ever encountered racist remarks from the Indiana Fever fan base in my 11-year tenure. Thomas's remarks were not unexpected. This goes beyond a single-player game. It has to do with a pattern. She claims that there is a trend in which black athletes face harsher criticism and their energy is viewed as a danger rather than a strength. Thomas chose to bring this type of bias to light since it has been ignored for far too long. I don't believe it's the Fever fans, so you have to be careful when you say things like that. According to my theory, it's because some individuals wanted Caitlin Clark to be a certain way and believed she was. As a result, they became fans of Caitlin Clark and later found that she isn't racist. Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas's dispute has taken an unexpected turn. And it has nothing to do with game strategy or basketball statistics this time. Rather, Alyssa Thomas chose to use Caitlin Clark as the focal point of a contentious racial discussion, bringing up Clark's name in a discussion she never requested. Thomas didn't hold back as usual, and social media naturally erupted in a frenzy. Let's break this out, though. Was Thomas right to criticize racism in the WNBA, or was it just another instance of unwarranted annoyance? Without a doubt, one of the most captivating talents to ever grace the WNBA is Caitlin Clark. She is well known because to her dynamic play, accurate shooting, and court commanding skills, she is a game changer in addition to being a star. However, rather than recognizing Clark's apparent talent, Alyssa Thomas seems more focused in criticizing her growing fame. The WNBA almost seemed unprepared for what Caitlin Clark had to offer, intended to bring along. Thomas is charged that the WNBA's advertising is excessively black athletes are marginalized while players like Clark are highlighted. Let's be clear, though, that Clark's rise isn't the result of some secret plan. Simply said, it's because she delivers. Her incredible performances, which fans can't get enough of, have earned her a place at the top. Perhaps she is attracting the crowd, which is why the league is giving her the recognition she merits. Being a fierce competitor on the court has been Alyssa Thomas's profession, but her off-court antics are another matter. She has recently spoken out against the league's purported racial inequities in player marketing. Her contention? Because of their race rather than their skill, athletes like Caitlin Clark get greater attention. Although basketball is on a terrific path, we don't want supporters who will disparage us and call us names based on our race. We already see what's going on in the globe and the issues we face in that regard, after all. We come to play basketball for work and it's enjoyable, but this is the problem. Thomas' remarks don't contribute anything to fruitful conversations about equality. Rather, they taste like sour grapes. Caitlin Clark is not in charge of the league's marketing tactics, nor did she design the system. It is not only unreasonable to hold Clark responsible for systemic problems, it is indolent. Thomas frequently draws attention to what she refers to as double standards in the way that white and black athletes are seen. She claims that whereas white sportsmen like Clark are praised for their aggressiveness, black athletes are criticized for being overly aggressive. Here's the truth, though. Caitlin Clark is praised for demonstrating results to support her confidence. It seems that they wanted to seize Caitlin Clark and use her as fuel to make it what they wanted it to be. Not to mention that Clark also receives a lot of criticism. Conveniently ignoring her record-breaking performances, critics have labeled her cocky and egotistical. The reality is that being a public figure involves both acclaim and criticism. Perhaps Alyssa Thomas should put more effort into improving her performance rather than controlling how the public and media view her rivals. In addition to her extraordinary talent, Caitlin Clark stands out for her ability to maintain focus. Clark lets her game do the talking while Alyssa Thomas causes controversy. She has demonstrated that she is not only a celebrity but also a class act by refusing to participate in the back and forth. Whether it's this league checking or them checking their fans, something must be done. Time is no longer available for it. Clark's quiet is a sign of maturity, not complicity. She is aware that becoming involved in these arguments would only divert her attention from her primary purpose, which is to play basketball. If only Alyssa Thomas would learn from her mistakes. One must question what Thomas is actually doing to bring about change. Despite her claims to be exposing injustice, although her criticisms are loud, they are frequently unfounded. The actual obstacles that black athletes encounter are not addressed by complaining about the WNBA's marketing. Rather, it causes needless divisions among participants. We don't want social media to be blown up about things like that every day when we go to work. It's not appropriate. Being in the center of this controversy was not something Caitlin Clark requested. She shouldn't have to apologize because she has worked hard to achieve her success. Perhaps Thomas should concentrate on solutions rather than criticizing athletes who have done nothing wrong if she is so worried about inequity. The underlying jealousy in Alyssa Thomas' remarks is difficult to overlook. Thomas obviously doesn't enjoy sharing the limelight, and Caitlin Clark's ascent has been nothing short of phenomenal. However, Thomas has decided to undermine Clark rather than take inspiration from her achievements. My name shouldn't be used to further their goals. It's disappointing. It's unacceptable. However, I must admit that I grew up wanting to play in and adoring this league. Growing up, some of the women in this league served as my biggest role models and inspirations, inspiring me to strive for this opportunity where I get to play every night. Thomas doesn't look good like this. She can best demonstrate her value by dominating on the court rather than making divisive remarks. She must earn the same amount of attention as Clark if she wants to receive it. The WNBA is already battling for respect and recognition in the larger sports community. Internal divisions are the last thing it needs. The remarks made by Alyssa Thomas only serve to exacerbate the situation and divert attention from the league's advancement. They want her to be the embodiment of their prejudice and worldview, but she isn't like that. Conversely, Caitlin Clark embodies the positivity, professionalism, and unquestionable talent that the league needs more of. She has demonstrated that she is not only a celebrity, but also a role model by remaining out of the spotlight. Press the like button and then subscribe. In addition to being unfair, blaming Caitlin Clark for WNBA's systemic problems is also ineffective. Clark deserves all of the accolades she has received since she has worked really hard to get to where she is. The people who make the decisions should be the target of Alyssa Thomas's complaints about the league's marketing tactics, not her fellow athletes. Thomas needs to accept responsibility now. She ought to concentrate on improving herself and finding positive ways to push for change rather than criticizing Clark. No one benefits from the blame game. There must be a reason why she is speaking. Shall we discuss this Connecticut Sun series? After being poked in the eye in this series, Caitlin Clark claimed in the media that it was an accident. It was inadvertent. However, we witnessed reporters trying to make more of it, gaslighting that circumstance and speaking to promote false narratives. Dejaney Carrington, who has been outspoken about the problems that players have faced this WNBA season, posted about repeatedly being called the N-word and receiving threats against her life because of an incident that Caitlin Clark claimed involved basketball. The success of Caitlin Clark is a result of her talent and diligence. She serves as an example for young athletes worldwide, demonstrating the value of perseverance. Alyssa Thomas might be able to pick up some tips from her competitor's strategy. There is space for a lot of stars in the WNBA, and no player's success should have to come at the expense of another. Players like Thomas must, however, quit disparaging one another and begin supporting one another if that is to occur. He mentioned several names that he had been called while he was in Indiana, but we are unable to repeat them over the air. And the question, who the hell is he was being raised? He had me, but he's probably lying or something. There I stood. Yes, I did hear what they said to him, word for word. And all of a sudden, they called him names, including the N-word. They were unconcerned. Indiana right there. Indiana right there. And therefore, I won't indulge in geographical discrimination, condemn a region of this country or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing.